Broken coastlines began with a simple observation. Along the False Bay shore, erosion is not only climatic, it is cultural. Here at Strandfontein, the waves and wind are more than agents that shape the coastline, they reshape its meaning. Erosion exposes buried histories and reveals the fragility of our interventions or infrastructures in this landscape, like at my chosen site of Broken Road. From the very first site walk, guided by Dr. Joanne Piers, Dr. Anya Martin and Dr. Dylan McGarry, I understood this place through its absences as much as its presences, prompted by the question, who or what is missing? During our site walks, we were encouraged to walk slowly, to listen, to collect traces. Moving across the dunes, I noticed the wind first. From above to below the dune line, feelings of exposure and of a quiet unease emerged, of a landscape holding memories beneath its surface. I experimented with setting dyed cloth into the waves, letting the water tear and stain the fabric. A material metaphor for how erosion inscribes itself into man-made objects, transforming it into something new. These iterative acts, walking, sensing, collecting traces, form the backbone of my research methodology. They taught me that erosion is not simply destruction, it is transformation. It reveals what we have overlooked in nature. This abstracted site map positions myself along the coast in aiming to start to unpack these hidden histories of forced removals and colonial control which ultimately separated people from each other and from the beach itself. During these site visits, sea glass repeatedly appeared, both at Muizenberg and at Strandfontein, as markers of human presence. One sharp fragments of human consumption, now polished by years of movement in the waves. Sea glass captured the essence of my inquiry, a man-made artifact transformed by natural forces into a modern-day midden, emblematic of both human discards and human presence or belonging. Embedded within its smooth surface lie concealed histories of extraction, colonial legislation like the Native Beer Act of 1908, which saw the overruling colonial powers transform traditional beer practices in favor of glass beer bottles, which now lie scattered across the sand like bones. The revealing nature of erosion also extends to the quiet erasures of indigenous coastal practices, of fish catching over time, evident in recorded shell middens, which used to exist along this stretch of coast, now lie largely buried by concrete, railways and housing. This traumatic past embedded within every shard of sea glass opens up questions of absences. What other stories are so easily overlooked? What is missing? Could it be the formidable presence of Cecil Rhodes in his old cottage overlooking the coast? Here I make the link between sea glass and shell middens as both repositories of human presence and belonging at this coast. Sea glass becomes a lens to view erased histories at the site that through natural processes of erosion became revealed to me. The constant push and pull in the waves transforms the landscape physically, but it also transforms or reveals meaning, washing away layers of time to reveal history, culture, and belonging. Here I wondered what gets lost in this process of constant change at the coast, and what could be discovered. Sea glass made me ask, what else has been removed? What lies buried beneath the sand? What stories or practices have been buried by the infrastructure we built? This coastline is laden with erased histories, illustrated in these figures, seemingly invisible yet eerily present in the sand beneath our feet. During my second site visit to Strandfontein Pavilion and the walk back to Muizenberg, we passed by Broken Road, just west of the Strandfontein Pavilion, a short stretch of tarred road that once connected the beach to Baden-Powell Drive, now fractured, sinking, and slowly returning to the sand. Here I have shown another tile map of a zoomed-in portion of the Broken Road to illustrate the eroded edge of Broken Road. The wind and waves gnaw at its edges, as if nature is reclaiming what was once forced upon this landscape. I view Broken Road similarly to sea glass and shell middens, mentioned previously, as a human artifact or repository of histories and social practices that through natural forces of erosion gets transformed and revealed to us. In this case, in the physical weathering or crumbling away of the road infrastructure, Broken Road became the site that embodied my developing narrative of erosion. During a later site visit, I wanted to unpack this complex layering of the site, physical, ecological, and social, and I opted to 3D scan the edges of Broken Road, which can be seen in these images, to understand these layers on a textural level. Thereafter I met a fisherman, Farid, who had fished here for over 20 years. Even when he was young, he would fish with his father, and now he returns regularly. He told me the road's always been a problem, but the fish here are good, and that's why we keep coming back. His words reveal a quiet resilience. even when the infrastructure fails, relationships between nature and people continue. Whilst recognizing the state of the road's disrepair that has made recreational fishing at the site difficult and at times dangerous, people still return. This site is valuable. And so, erosion is both a physical process and a revealer of erased histories. From koi and sand middens buried beneath the railway lines, of coastal livelihoods disrupted by apartheid spatial planning and the dividing force of Baden-Powell Drive, and layers of human belonging now hidden in the dunes. Developing the design, where the intervention's form was derived from the dunes and desire paths. My early sketches explored vertical elements, precast concrete fins rising out of the dunes, like markers of time. Their rhythm was informed by the dunes' natural patterning and aimed to block the prevailing southeasterly winds. This thinking found precedent in Enrique Morales' Igualada Cemetery, where concrete is not only a monument, but a scaffold for life to play out. A place where burial, memory, and landscape intervene. Igualada taught me that concrete can hold stories. It can frame life transitions, reveal cycles, and resist human erasure while supporting social practices of remembering. As my design emerged, I turned to the natural geometries of the site, the sand dune formation shaped by the wind, and the informal desire paths created by local fisher people to find the shortest route to the shore, all which began to guide my spatial logic of the intervention and the rhythm of my vertical concrete fins. During this stage, I realized that any built form here must respond sensitively to the environment with care, functioning together with the dunes, not cutting across them. So the intervention follows the general line of the original broken road, which I wish to make pedestrian, redirecting car access within the existing adjacent parking lot to prevent any further degradation of this delicate ecosystem, whilst respecting people's familiar practices of movement and use. In this way, the intervention aims to respond to both people and nature's needs. The result is an elevated walkway, lifting human circulation above the fragile dune ecosystem, supported by a reimagined seawall that bends to the site's natural dune morphology, rather than imposing a rigid defensive straight line. Throughout this project, I learned that repair is an act of care. It is an ongoing process that acknowledges what came before. It does not erase the damaged, but transforms it into something useful again. Here, repair does not mean restoring the road to as it was. Instead, it means working with its remains, the fragments of asphalt, the eroded edges, the memories embedded at the site. Repair is more than maintenance. It is a careful healing act of landscapes and people. In Matters of Care, the disruptive thought of care by Maria della Bella Casa, repair and care are intertwined. Care is key to the relationship between people and landscape. Reparative work means caring for ourselves and for our communities, and in this case, also the sand. The reimagined seawall embodies this reparative call, functioning as a protective defense and a dialogue between natural and social systems, a threshold where processes of erosion, memory, and human activity merge. This seawall would protect existing coastal dune ecosystems, as well as the social connections tied to the shoreline, including recreational fishing. Although I wish to make Broken Road pedestrian, I do acknowledge the established functioning of this fishing site, where people enjoy the convenience of fishing off the back of their buckies. As such, I have included fishers' stores set beneath the elevated walkway, established within the gabion walls for fisher people to prep, clean bait, and store equipment. Everything they would have done from the back of their buckies, but now with the space and service to do so. These stores will be pedestrian on one side and car accessible on the other, as shown in the plans, whereby I've utilized part of the existing parking lot as a drive-through fishers service station inspired by the Wembley Roadhouse in Athlone, to allow for the familiar fishing practices to continue, but now with the services in place that currently do not exist on site, such as water points, prep stations, bathrooms, a tuck shop, storage areas, an amphitheatre, braai, and play zones, and gathering spaces. I do not wish to simply reinstate Broken Road. Here, Broken Road, a damaging mark on the coast that has itself been eroded, does not become anew in this process. Rather, it becomes a functional, protective, and meaningful interface and connector, once again, for both people and ecosystems. I propose that the reimagined seawall be reinforced by the broken fragments of Broken Road itself. Between the primary structure of concrete fins will sit gabion walls filled with the crushed fragments of Broken Road. The very material that once harmed the dunes now becomes a stabilizing force for dune rejuvenation. These gabion baskets, which I've recreated within my material model, will support the elevated walkway above, as well as the social functioning of recreational fishing below, in the fisher stores, whilst providing a protective barrier for the sand dunes behind. This coastline hosts delicate dune ecologies. Heavy infrastructure such as the road being placed so close to the dunes and the shoreline undermines these natural rhythms, so the walkway is lifted above the dunes, allowing ecological systems to exist naturally beneath. The conditions present on site reveal broader ethical questions. When is human interventions needed to support nature's social systems? And when do such interventions perpetuate harm rather than help? Suggesting that a mere replication of normative engineered solutions, like a road, is not enough to respond effectively to the natural system. The intervention of broken road currently fails to address the interdependent relationship between nature and social systems. The seawall is intentionally semi-porous or dual-sided. Nature occupies one side, plants rooting in the gabions, insects, nests, and sand passing through. People occupy the other. Families gathering on tiered seating, communal storage area, braai zones and play areas, bathrooms, and protected spaces. It becomes a scaffold of coexistence, neither a barrier nor a fix, but rather an interface that allows ecological and social systems to exist and to support one another. This section highlights the reuse of the existing parking lot to become the fisher service spot. Over time, these gabions can hold more than just rubble. Inspired by the Igualada Cemetery's layering of memory, I imagine people placing small mementos, artifacts, shells, objects within the wall as it gets built. The seawall therefore becomes a living archive, part ecology, part infrastructure, part collective memory holder, like a beach bench plaque. The following slides highlight key moments within the design, such as the fisher's store, car-accessible service spots, and the elevated walkway to show how the reimagined seawall can be used to service local fishing communities and to provide as a dune protection barrier. Broken Coastlines is more than a coastal defensive proposal. It is an ethical and poetic stance on how we might intervene in landscapes marked by both natural and social erosion. We must accept that our designs will continue to mark the earth. Then we must let them be marks of resilience rather than rupture, becoming caring gestures that reveal our deep connection to nature, marks that support both human needs and ecological functioning, marks of care. As reparative theory reminds us, this coastline becomes a site of encounter, an interface where human and more than human worlds coexist. We must resist returning to the destructive patterns of infrastructural mark-making. Instead, we must design intentionally, fostering place attachment, social functioning, and ecological vitality. Broken Coastlines asks how we might build resilience, not by erasing the past, but by working with its remains, allowing what has been broken, buried, or reshaped to find new meaning along the shoreline.